here's the intro. Have I caught you in the middle of anything? Great. The reason why I'm calling is I help small businesses to develop their short and long-term strategy, grow or shrink their space footprint according to their needs, make sure they're not overpaying for office space. I don't know if we can create these improvements for you, so I had a question or two. How much of a priority is it for you to decrease or increase your office space? So here are some of the questions that basically try to understand, do I have pain points? So what we're doing different here is that we're asking pain questions instead of just giving the pain points and saying, do you have any of those? Which that takes you to a yes or no scenario. Here we're asking some questions, hopefully getting a conversation going and identifying how things are going. Depending on how those questions go, here are some current state questions. Are you still located at? Do you currently rent or own? How well does your current space meet your needs? And based on what just happened there, hopefully we asked some questions that got the person to say, yeah, things could be better, or that's a concern, and then you can go for the close and say, oh, well, we should probably talk in more detail. But if those questions don't get you going in the right direction, you could then share some pain points and say, well, I tell you what, the reason why I'm calling is a lot of businesses that we work with, they're having this pain, this pain, this pain. Are you concerned about any of those? So that's basically really your fallback position. He basically opened up with that. This is what's going on. Are you concerned about any of those? So hopefully in some of those steps of your cold call script, you basically identify that it might make sense to talk based on their needs or based on their responses. And then that's where you can start to close for talking in more detail. And that's where you can say something like, oh, well, based on what you shared, it might make sense to talk in more detail. The reason why is I'm with this company and we basically provide commercial real estate advisory services. We help clients to find new space. We also help clients to rent out their space, provide tenant representation, management services. Some ways we're different from other commercial real estate agencies out there is that we have existing relationships with all the major buildings in the city. We have a legal team that's skilled at getting out of current leases, which is good for the environment we're in today. We have the best marketing strategies in the market. A quick example, we actually worked with a tenant in your building. They had a lot of unused space because of the current environment that we're working in. And we actually helped them to renegotiate their agreement to not only get a better rate per square foot, but also we helped them to decrease the amount of space that was in their agreement. But I've called you out of the blue. I'm not sure if this is the best time to talk about this. Are you available for a brief 15 to 20 minute meeting where I can share some examples of how we've helped other tenants to shrink their current agreement or grow their space depending on their needs? Are you available next Tuesday or Thursday morning? Or we could keep talking about this right now if you're free for another 10, 15, 20 minutes. So that's the close. So that's basically just taking everything he gave us and putting it into a better flow, tighter message, better questions, and that should have taken him to a better place. Now, one last thing I want to talk to you about is that I gave him a couple objections, and we could certainly improve how he responded to those objections. So one of the objections that came up real early was I asked, well, what is this in regards to? And he basically said, commercial real estate, I've been helping out some people. When someone says, what's this in regards to? They're basically trying to identify, what's going on? Are you a salesperson? Are you about to try to sell to me? This is a challenging objection, by the way, but one thing that you can do is you can just go back to a section in your call script, which is your value points. So when someone says, what's this in regards to? Well, you can say, well, the reason for the call is we help business owners to develop their short and long-term real estate strategy. Another objection that came up is I basically said everything's fine, which is something that you'll run into, which is someone says, I'm not interested, or we don't need anything, or we're not making any changes right now. Well, what he basically said is, oh, okay, all right. That's all I wanted to ask you today. That's most of the stuff I was curious about. So he basically conceded when I said everything's fine. Now, at some point, you do need to concede and move on to try to reach better prospects. But let's talk about how he could respond to this. So if he's just trying to keep the conversation going, he could try to respond by asking some questions. Oh, I understand. If I could ask you real quick, how much of a hassle is it for you dealing with your landlord? Now, so he could go back up to the script when he gets we're not making any changes right now, and ask questions. That's a great way to keep the conversation going. Now, if he's already asked all of his questions or we've been talking for a while, he might not be able to go back up to that. Now, one thing that you can do is you can try to close in a way that you're focusing back on the sales process that you're trying to take the prospect through. The sales process that you should go through for really selling anything is you start with an interaction, and that's where we're at. That's where this guy was at on this call example. The next step is to have a conversation. While we were talking real quick, the next step is to have a real conversation where both parties are listening and there and agree to be there. And then at some point after that is an explanation. This is an explanation of what he does, how he can help, and whatnot. What he was basically doing is he was trying to identify in this interaction, do you need what I sell? I'm a commercial real estate agent. Are you struggling in these areas? Do you need what I sell enough for me to explain to you how I can solve your problems? I didn't have any problems, so that really did not go anywhere. But the reality is that he could have focused more on just trying to sell the conversation. If things are okay, or if I'm not looking to make a change, that might be a valid reason for him to not explain to me how he can help because I don't need anything. But there could still be a reason for us to have a conversation. You could redirect back to the close. You can basically try to close for the next step, even though the prospect says everything's fine, by saying something like, oh, I understand. Well, it sounds like things are pretty good over there. Even though you're not needing to make a change today, I'd still be very interested in having a brief conversation with you, and we can share some examples of how we're helping other businesses and then you could insert some value. Are you open to a brief intro conversation? That way, when you get closer to needing to make a change, you can know who we are and how we can help, and you won't have to try to figure out who is a good advisor at that particular moment. So whether or not that's the right wording right there, this is basically, they're saying everything's fine, and you're saying, I understand. Is there still an opportunity for us to have a brief conversation? And that is a response that you can use when they say, we don't have any budget right now, we're not making any changes, we're currently locked into a contract. You're basically letting them know that you're aware that they're not going to buy anything, and you're not trying to sell them anything. You're just trying to sell them on having a brief conversation. So I hope you can take some of those ideas of what he could have done better and apply those to your calls. If this has helped you in any way, given you any ideas or tips that you might be able to apply to what you're doing, and that helps you, you could return the favor by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing to our channel. That helps us tremendously, doesn't cost you anything. Please follow us on any of these social platforms. We are trying to publish sales tips every day, so instead of these long videos that you'll find on YouTube, we're stripping these down to 30 to 60-second sales tips and posting those daily on all of these platforms. So be sure to follow us to get our daily sales tips. If you want more information on how the SMART sales system can help you, basically all these tips that I gave you here today are part of the SMART sales system. And if you want to figure out how these tips can help you more, basically SMART stands for sales messaging and response tactics. And as you can see here today, basically we were going about trying to improve his cold call script by improving his sales messaging and his responses. And that's all part of the SMART sales system, which is all outlined in the book, The SMART Sales System. And you can get a copy of that book here. If you're not ready to buy the book or you don't want to spend any money, you can actually access all of the SMART Sales System on YouTube for free. There's a video for every chapter in the book. And the reason why we give away our methodology and our training for free on YouTube is because our business model is to sell our software platform called Sales Scripter, which basically aligns with the SMART Sales System. So if you like the SMART Sales System and you want to implement the SMART Sales System, you could certainly do that with a Microsoft Word with a set of Microsoft Word documents and spreadsheets. But if you really want to do it right, you'll save a lot of time and do it a lot better by using the Sales Scripter platform, which actually has a sales message builder in it. And when you build your sales message in Sales Scripter, it'll use your message to fill up a library of scripts and emails, and there's also CRM functionality, email automation. And the third leg of this three-legged stool of the SMART Sales System is professional services, and we can certainly work with you on a consulting or coaching basis to help you to create your script, create your message, create your strategy, and whatnot. So definitely available to help you there. And if you want any more information on any of that, go to salesscripter.com. Hope this helps, and happy hunting.